It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hey Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
For too long, American Indian tribes have faced a competitive disadvantage when litigating against powerful forces. With its American Indian law and policy practice, Robbins Kaplan, LLP, seeks to redefine excellence for high-stakes litigation in Indian country. They have worked hand in hand with tribes to implement the Tribal Law and Order Act, fighting against diminishment of tribal lands and natural resources, and improving public safety on reservations. The Robbins Kaplan American Indian Law and Policy Practice serves tribes and individuals on commercial, government investigations, agency and tribal boundary disputes, as well as personal injury. Founded and led by former United States Attorneys Brendan Johnson and Tim Purdon, their American Indian Law and Policy Practice exists to bring justice to tribal clients whose claims in the past have been dismissed or ignored due to their underdog status. If you or your tribe are facing legal issues, contact robinskaplan.com or call toll-free at 1-800-553-9910.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for clear skies overnight with a temp rising to about 5, Tuesday sunny with a high near 29, and Wednesday sunny with a high around 31. Victor's 1959 Cafe on Grand Avenue is a little piece of Cuban cuisine right in South Minneapolis. Favorites include the Ropa Vieja, sweet plantain omelet, seafood paella, and more. They're open for both indoor dining room seating and takeout orders. More at victors1959cafe.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, hitting cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host today, Wendy Pilot, also known as Hanaji Hihani. Robert Pilot is in a Ho-Chunk legislative meeting, so I think that's in Chicago, but of course it's in Zoom, and he's in the other room here, but he will not be here tonight. He'll be back tomorrow. We're also going to be hearing from Dr. Stately. He is a PhD in child psychology, and he is the CEO at the Native American Community Clinic in Minneapolis. And as we all know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. And this portion of the show is brought to you by Alliant Energy, powering beyond. We're going to hear from Ogimaa here in just a minute. And there goes the cat just jumping up on the table, knocking everything over. Hello, Lucy. I just want everyone to know, right now, I probably know at least 10 people, close people to me, who've had COVID and who are just getting over it, or who have COVID right now. And yes, Lucy, yesterday morning I woke up with kind of a cold. You might be able to hear it in my throat, and I'm kind of stuffy and nasally and blowing my nose. So I was panicking because I wanted to go out to get a rapid test. And I went to Walgreens, and there was a woman right in front of me who was like taking all the COVID rapid tests off the counter, and they were going fast, and there was two left. and I got them. And I came home and I tested, and the first test is negative. So I'm really happy about that. And tomorrow they tell you, in 24 to 48 hours to do a second rapid. So I will do that tomorrow. But I don't know, at this point, I feel like I just want to, maybe I should just get it and get it over with. I don't know. But these are some of the questions maybe we could ask Dr. Stately later. But before we talk to him, we're going to talk to Ogimaa with the news. So welcome, Ogimaa. And you are on mute. I cannot hear you. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe she's got to go in and out. Ogimaa just moved, and I know that she had a lot of new equipment. There you go.
Can you hear me now? I don't know why it randomly muted me. I'm sorry about that. You're right. I do
No
have a lot
problem.
of new equipment this year. So, Bonjour, Wendy, and everybody. I'm Ogimaa Giniw Ikwe. I'm from the Red Lake Nation in northern Minnesota. I live in central Minnesota now, and we have not seen above zero in quite a long time. So I am definitely ready for some warmer weather as we come into this new year. So hopefully that happens for us tomorrow. As always, I like to talk about what's happening in the Line 3 movement here in Minnesota. What's really interesting is that the Intercept has been following the anti-pipeline protesters in Minnesota. TheIntercept.com is a really great journalistic website, and they're on Policing the Pipeline Part 16, where they reveal now that Enbridge Energy, if you did not already know, the Enbridge Energy Company from Canada is the company that is installing the Line 3 pipeline replacement project here in Minnesota. And it looks like, Wendy, our viewers can't hear us. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I could hear you just fine. And I don't know why our viewers can't hear us. The viewers on Facebook can't hear us. Wow, I don't know. But let's keep going because I'm sure we're on the radio and we'll try to fix that maybe in a little bit.
Yeah, hang in there with us. Apparently they can hear you, but they can't hear me, but you can hear me.
I can hear you just fine, Ogimaa.
All right. We'll just keep rolling with it, everybody. Anyway, so Enbridge Energy installed the Line 3 pipeline replacement project, and in doing so created massive amounts of damage and major civil unrest here in Minnesota. But what happened right now that the Intercept was talking about just at the end of the year from the Partnership for Civil Justice Fund Center for Protest Law and Litigation, which is representing pipeline opponents, they're finding out that excuse me, the Minnesota attorney for Hubbard County, Jonathan Frieden, actually attempted to bill over $12,000 to the special account set up by the state of Minnesota to allow Enbridge to pay for law enforcement and public safety expenses affiliated with the pipeline construction. The major problem with that billing is that basically defense attorneys for the water protectors are saying that many of the charges that people received in the process of defending Minnesota and being anti-pipeline are overly aggressive and should be dismissed. The examples of that would be felony theft charges for protesters who chain themselves to equipment, and felony aiding attempted suicide for those who crawled into sections of non-functional pipe, which is just outrageous. Joshua Preston, who was a lawyer for the water protector, says that this is meant to send a message, and if you come to the property to chain yourself to something, basically the state of Minnesota is going to throw the book at you, and then turn around and try to bill the company that you're fighting against for the charges. So if you haven't gotten a chance, make sure you check out that article on The Intercept. And you're taking some time here to educate yourself on what's going on with that. And then in northern Minnesota, way northern Minnesota, in the Boundary Waters, there's another battle that's raging here, which is PolyMet. So coming up on January 25th at 3 p.m., there's going to be live music, winter yard games, hot cocoa, and speakers at the Minnesota State Capitol from a number of clean water organizations who are looking to tell the Minnesota Governor, Tim Walz, to stop spending taxpayer dollars defending PolyMet, which is a copper and sulfide mining project project that has failed at the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota. So make sure you are checking that out and educating yourself there as well. Some other exciting things that are happening. I know we talk a lot about local Indigenous art, but there is a young man named Joey Montoya who has urban native era products that are now hitting the shelves at REI, which is really exciting. Joey Montoya is Lipan Apache, and started Urban Native Era in 2012, according to Indian Country Today. It's best known for hats, t-shirts, socks, and stickers, including the phrase, "You are on native land." And last week, REI announced it's going to be selling Urban Native Era's products in 40 of its stores around the country, which is big news. And from our relatives over in Canada, we have an all-female class that has just graduated from heavy equipment operator license certification, which the 12 women, all women class, are from the Little Red River Cree Nation in northern Alberta, and they all received their heavy equipment operator certificates, which is a big deal. The program was hosted by one of the 3 communities at Little Red River Cree, which is Garden River. The other 2 communities are Fox Lake and John Doerr Prairie. And it was a 13-week program, and many of the women have already secured jobs with that chosen field. So I think that that's super exciting. Wendy, are we hearing any bumper music coming in from the station?
Yeah, nope. Well, I'm going to play it here in just 3 seconds. But yeah,
Okay.
I love when I see, I'm driving down the street and I see a woman and she's driving a big semi. I always put like my hand up like to pull the horn, and they do. They're like blow the horn, even though I think that's against the law for them to do it. But yeah, heavy equipment. That's awesome. Yeah, women should have jobs, do anything that they want to do, and heavy equipment. Why not? We're going to be right back after this short break, and we're going to talk to me about our sacred animals. After that, we'll talk to Dr. Stately. Listen to this great music, and we'll be back after this short break. Stay with us.
When we heal from our traumas,
when we face our fears,
let go of our addictions,
when we relearn our values,
when we live our teachings,
respecting our elders,
cherishing and honoring our children,
when we honor and take care of our spirit,
there will be no room left for sexual violence.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Aho, relatives. My name is George McCauley, Omaha Nation. I'm a citizen of the Omaha Nation in Nebraska, but reside in the Twin Cities area. As we head into wintertime, many of us will be back together indoors. It's important to make sure you receive your COVID booster shot. Those 65 and over are recommended to receive their booster dose. Older Americans are more at risk for complications for COVID-19. So get your booster shot to make sure you stay safe and healthy this winter. All 3 COVID vaccine boosters have been approved. Find a vaccine site by calling 651-304-9986 or go to this website, vaccineconnector.mn.gov. 651-304-9986. or go to vaccineconnector.mn.gov.
Bijou, I am Oshawashko Gijig. I'm from Red Lake Nation, And you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host today, Wendy Pilot. Robert is off today, but he'll be back tomorrow. This portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations. Howl! I might do this later on too when Dr. Stately's on too. You know how we love to howl. I'm a humane policy volunteer leader for the Humane Society of the United States, and I work on animal issues at the local and state level. My Native American name is Hanaji, which means cares for them, and I was given that name by my Dega, Curtis. And as always, Curtis, thank you for that meaningful name. It really means a lot to me. Curtis goes by Mashke Hanajinga, which means walks on white clouds. So as always, Curtis, thank you. I was going to talk about condors, and I will get to the condors. What I want to talk about right now, I've been getting a lot of feedback from a lot of people out there on Facebook and other animal advocacy groups that they're having a problem with a organization called Humane Watch. Now, if you listen to the name, right, Humane Watch, it really sounds like it's a organization that would look out for animals. Kind of sounds that way to me, and I think a lot of people think that it does. However, Humane Watch is an organization run by companies with unsafe, unhealthy, and inhumane practices, and they pay wealthy corporate lobbyists, one whose name is Richard Berman, to go and lobby for these large agriculture companies, the NRA, and other big corporations. So let's just say, like, I'm a factory farm, right? And I have a bunch of cattle. And how I make money is to keep the cattle in really small areas. I don't want to clean up after them. They're, knee high in feces and urine. And I am keeping them in cold conditions. They're exposed to the weather. And, but that's how I keep money, right? Because I could keep my heating low, give this animal just a bare minimum to survive, to become a steak. But the Humane Society of the United States wants these animals to have better conditions while they're on this earth, to have better conditions, to be able to be warm, to walk around, maybe not to be kept in a stall where they cannot turn around or stand up freely, kept warm, just basic, basic needs that an animal needs to flourish and just feel good. But anyway, there's this organization out there called Humane Watch, and what they actually do is they spread lies and rumors about the Humane Society of the United States, saying things like, they don't use their money to help dogs and cats, all kinds of different things. And they get people to believe them. They really do. And the reason why, I think that this is something else that the Humane Society has its own big giant organization called the Humane Watch, trying to get people not to like the Humane Society of the United States, stop donating to them because they are so successful in helping animals. Why wouldn't we want to get rid of lead shot? And I've talked about this many times on the radio. Lead shot, an animal is shot. Let's say it's a deer. It takes off running. The hunter didn't kill it. It just wounded it. The animal lays down somewhere elsewhere and then eventually dies. And then the prey animals will come and eat that deer and then eat the lead. So the non-targeted animals, it could be all kinds of animals. It could be an eagle, one of our, beautiful eagles, a condor that I'm going to be talking about here in a minute. Those animals will die because they ate that lead, the lead in the animal that died. So, and the Humane Society of the United States is working really hard right now to stop lead shot. Like there's lots of ammunition out there that hunters can use that won't be so toxic to non-targeted animals. So if you see things on the internet about Humane Watch and you read it, it really sounds like the Humane Society of the United States really does a bad job, and all it wants is its money. I mean, I don't think any organization out there, including the Humane Society of the United States, is perfect. You know, nobody is perfect. And everybody has, you know, things that they could work on to improve, and the Humane Society of the United States included. However, I've been working with them for 5 years now and have seen so many wonderful things that they have done. So I don't want people to get duped by this Humane Watch and these people who just want to put the Humane Society of the United States down. Now, I'm talking about that, but what I really want to talk is about condors. This is an article by Rachel Fritz, and it was on September 21st, 2021, so a little while back, but it's still pertinent. Thanks to the Yurok, I looked on how to pronounce that, the Yurok tribe, condors will return to the Pacific Northwest. The California condor is a creature of great cultural significance to the Yurok tribe in what is now Northern California, but was wiped out from their ancestral territory by the early 20th century. Tribal elders made the decision to bring the bird back in 2003, kicking off years of research and outreach to pave the way for this critically endangered species return. This spring, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service finally gave the green light for the population of the California condor to be reestablished in the Pacific Northwest. The first 4 will be released next spring. So this spring, after this horrible winter we're going through right now. Next spring, California condors will soar in Northern California for the first time in a century. 4 young condors will be released in Redwood National and State Parks, reintroducing this critically endangered species to what was once only the middle of a vast range that stretched from Baja California all the way to British Columbia. But if it weren't for the Yurok tribe, who have fought for their return of this culturally and ecologically important bird for the past 13 years, the condor's Pacific Northwest homecoming might never have happened at all. The story of the California condor return to the Pacific Northwest is one of endurance, said Thomas Gates, who worked as the director of the tribe's Office of Self-Governance at the time tribal elders decided to prioritize condor reintroduction. When the tribe first stated their desire to bring the condor back to Northern California, people thought we were crazy, Gates said. It took years of research, relationship building, and careful planning to get the official go-ahead from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which is the USFWS, to establish a new population of condors that might fly as far as north as Oregon. The USFWS backed the project in March of this year. Quote, "I'm really excited to be a tribal member helping to lead this tribal endeavor because honestly, tribes don't get to do this sort of thing as often as I'd like," said Tiana Williams-Clausen, who is the director of the Yurok Tribe Wildlife Department and has played an integral role in the reintroduction effort. The Yurok full ability to care for their land was taken away when they were forced into the reservation, she said. This is an example of a way that tribes are taking that authority and that power back. And the importance of these condors, the California condor is a species of particularly high cultural importance to the Yurok tribe, Clausen said. Tribal members tell stories about the condor that go back to the beginning of time and collect condor feathers to use in regalia for their biennial world renewal ceremonies. The bird is also believed to carry prayers to the heavens due to its ability to fly to a dizzying height of up to 15,000 feet. But Williams Clausen didn't grow up hearing stories about the condor, she said. By the early 20th century, the last condors in the Pacific Northwest had disappeared, and the Yurok tribe's cultural traditions were slipping away as well. There was a time when I was concerned, harmful to tell these it was considered harmful to tell these stories and dangerous because of the massacres and boarding school experience, Williams Clausen said. But during her lifetime, the tribe began to push for a rejuvenation of Yurok cultural traditions, and they turned to the aging elders. So I think this is fantastic that they are bringing back an animal, beautiful California condor, to this area, and hopefully they will do well and flourish. But after this, we will talk to Dr. Stately. Dr. Stately is a PhD in child psychology, and he is the CEO at the Native American Community Clinic in Minneapolis. So stay with us, and we'll be back after this short break.
Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me, Wen. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
It's not the younger people who are getting sick, and that's what people are so hesitant about getting the vaccine, because they think to themselves, well, I'm not really going to die. However, right now, they are the ones who are transmitting the virus to other people, and we need to make sure we're vaccinating as many people as possible.
This message was brought to you by McGizzy Communications and Minnesota Department of Health.
Navigating COVID while protecting yourself can be difficult. Fortunately, there's a hotline you can call with any questions. The Department of Indian Work St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on vaccines, booster shots, and testing sites. Right now, booster shots are available to anyone over the age of 18 for those who are eligible. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline can also help with housing, food, medical, and educational support. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19, vaccinations, booster shots, or testing, please call 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open for calls Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986.
Hi, this is Desi Doyen of the Green News Report and the Bradcast. You're listening to AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, I'm Anna, and I'm 8 years old, and I'm getting my COVID vaccine. If you're between 5 and 11 years old, you can get vaccinated too. Getting the jab might seem a little scary, but there is lots of good reasons to do it. You'll be protected from COVID, and you'll be less likely to spread it to people like family and friends. Have your parents find a vaccination site by calling 651-304-9986 or visit vaccineconnector.mn.gov.
Hi, this is Laura with Food Freedom Radio. This week we're going to explore the relationship between diet and the human gut microbiome with University of Minnesota's assistant professor, Abigail Johnson. Have you noticed how some people can eat a ton of calories and not gain weight? Others gain weight really fast. It turns out that microbes generally don't respond to foods in the same way from person to person. The connections between the microbiome and nutrition next on Food Freedom Radio this Saturday at 8 a.m. or anytime via podcast.
Hi, I'm Scott Shambot from Shambot Family Dentistry. We're the fear-free, shame-free dental office. If you're having a dental emergency, we'll try and get you in the same day you call because we don't like to see anyone in pain. And we'll help you get through every appointment in the most pain-free way possible. As my daughter Rachel says,
if you don't see my dad, please see another dentist. Take care of your teeth because they're the only ones you get.
Shambot Family Dentistry in Hopkins and St. Paul. Find them online at shamblotfamilydentistry.com or call 1-800-FIX-MY-TEETH.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for clear skies overnight with a temp rising to about 5. Tuesday sunny with a high near 29, and Wednesday sunny with a high around 31. Victor's 1959 Cafe on Grand Avenue is a little piece of Cuban cuisine right in South Minneapolis. Favorites include the Ropa Vieja, sweet plantain omelet, seafood paella, and more. They're open for both indoor dining room seating and takeout orders. More at victors1959cafe.com.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host today, Wendy Pilot. Robert is off today, but he'll be back tomorrow. This portion of the show is brought to you by MN350, a grassroots organization fighting for climate justice. Today is Monday, and we have the privilege here today to have Dr. Stately. Dr. Stately is a PhD in child psychology, and he is the CEO at the Native American Community Clinic in Minneapolis. Welcome, Dr. Stately. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Wendy. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Excuse me.
Doing great. Yeah. I was telling Ogimaa and our audience earlier today that I probably know at least 10 people right now who have just came out of quarantine from having COVID, or who have COVID right now as we speak. In fact, not yesterday, the day before, I went to the grocery store and picked up some groceries for someone and brought them to their house because they're quarantining with COVID. And yesterday morning I woke up and I felt a little kind of under the weather. My throat kind of hurt a little bit, a little stuffy here and there. And today I ran out to Walgreens to try to find a rapid tests. And I was so lucky to get the last 2 on the shelf. I grabbed them up. And I'm like, I don't want anybody else to see them. I'm hiding them under my coat because I didn't want anyone to see me with them because they're a really hot commodity right now. But anyway, I came home and I tested and it did come negative. So I am happy about that. And I will test again in 24 to 48 hours just to be sure. Yeah, it's really hard to get these rapid antigen tests out there. I think you have to travel around and go to store to get them. Have you had any?
I haven't had any problems myself specifically getting them. I bought.
Well, you're the CEO of the clinic, so you shouldn't have a problem.
Well, yeah, but we don't have the rapid tests at the clinic. But I have. I bought 2, or I bought a couple of them, 2 or 3 maybe, a few months ago when they were first come out. I got them to keep just in case I needed them, because the boys were going back to school and there's all kinds of important reasons to have that. So back in I think October I bought some, and then my niece got sick. She tested positive. She was very ill right before Christmas. She was ill for a while, and then I spent some time over there with her brother and my sister, and then I was like, oh, I should get tested. And so then I actually went and got a PCR test because I wanted to make sure. And there's all kinds of reasons why that's important to do in my specific situation, because I work in a clinic, and also my own kids. I wanted to know fairly rapidly whether I had been exposed or not. I mean, I had been exposed, but I wanted to make sure that I was negative.
Mhm.
And those home tests can have some false negatives, and they have a higher rate of false negatives than they do for false positives. And so I did that, but I bought like they only let you buy four at a time, so I bought four on Friday, and then I went back on Saturday and bought four more, and then I went back again on Sunday and bought four more. So, and I gave the four, I gave like six of them that I bought to my family that were quarantining at home. My nephew and his mom and his sister and his girlfriend, so that they could test and do it the proper way, which is like, use one test for one person and test once, and then in a couple days test again, just for confirmation. And thank God they were all okay. And my niece is finally kind of out of the woods. She's tested negative and she's done being sick, but she was pretty sick for the better part of 2 weeks,
Wow.
almost 3 weeks, really sick, very, very sick.
Was she vaccinated?
She was vaccinated, but she was not boosted.
Okay.
She was the only one in her family that had not gotten their booster. So.
Mm. So do you think that's why she had a
I think
more?
it's certainly reasonable to expect that that's part of the reason why she had such a strong reaction from getting the virus, that she didn't get sick as she might not have gotten as sick as she had if she had her booster. Her brother also turned up positive, my nephew Ruben, and he did not nearly get as sick. He kind of just felt the general sense of malaise. Didn't feel well for a couple of days, but he did not get really seriously ill. And he had his booster, as did his mom. I didn't test positive at all. I have my booster. I've gotten practically every vaccine under the sun that they'll allow me to have.
Yeah, me
I mean,
too.
I got the flu shot. I got all my vaccines I caught up on. I'm like, I'm a walking tank.
I still have my shingles. I have not gotten that one yet because I was due for it at the same time during, we were going to get our first vaccines for COVID, and my doctor said to space those two apart. So I got my COVIDs, but I never went back to get my shingles, but I am due.
Yeah. I really want to, like, if I can encourage our listeners to do two things. One is that, the home tests are really important to take, to sort of, like, generally speaking, to sort of kind of monitor your own sort of status, right? And to sort of kind of be thoughtful about, like, the inside of your bubble. If you test negative but you start to exhibit symptoms, like, I think it's wise to get a PCR test, like go to NACC or IHB or another federally qualified healthcare center. They all test for free. There's a number of free testing sites. I think Minneapolis Convention Center is testing. The airport has a drive-up testing location. You can usually get your test results within 24 hours. And that's a really important thing to do because the PCR testing is really sensitive and it picks it up much better than the home kits do. Especially important to do if you're starting to feel like some symptoms. And with the Omicron, what they're saying generally is, like, the symptoms of Omicron are kind of a lot like the symptoms of the common cold. So it's kind of hard to distinguish, right? So you'd be like, oh, I have allergies or I have a cold. I'm just going to stay home. I'm not going to really worry about it too much. I'll see if I feel better later. And then maybe the symptoms clear up a little bit, but you're still infectious. And then you go out and about with your family or out into the public without a mask and doing other things. And you could be inadvertently, unknowingly, unwittingly spreading it. So it's important to follow up with that test, I think. And then I want to encourage people to return to getting their regular sort of healthcare things done if they can, if they have the ability to do that by going to a clinic or not, because things like that are really important. Getting your shingles vaccine is really important especially if you've had chickenpox in the past and you're over a certain age, right? You're much more likely, or if you have a stressful job or some immunocompromising stuff, I got my shingles vaccine, thank God, from my HIV doctor quite some years ago. But a close relative of mine, she did not get her shingles vaccine, and she ended up getting shingles right before Christmas, and it was painful. Shingles can show up inside your body, like internal in your internal organs. They can show up outside on your skin. It's really, really very uncomfortable and painful experience to have.
Yeah, I
And
know.
completely preventable.
Yeah, who had shingles on her face, and it did affect her eye. And years later, she still had like nerve pain in that area and had to take medication because of the nerve pain that was left over from the shingles, and it was from years ago. And yeah, I will call. It's actually on my list. And I be taking care of that this week.
I'm gonna ask you next week when I see you.
I know. No, so I'm gonna try to go and, like you said, like get tests and have them in the house. You know, at the end of the month, I'm leaving New York, and I'm going to be taking care of my little great niece. Her name's Lily, and she'll be 3 months at the time when I get there. And I'm really, really nervous. I'm going to quarantine like 2 weeks before I even go to New York. And then I'm going to be in New York at least 5 days before I see her. So I'm going to be bringing tests with me, and I'm going to like test every day before I see her, because that's like my worst fear, is to watch this little baby and have COVID. Of course, I will wear a mask. I will not walk into the house without a mask. I will have a mask on, but to get her sick, because she's so vulnerable right now. The good thing is my niece, while she was pregnant with her, got her vaccinations and boosted, and she's breastfeeding. So I'm hoping that little Lily is getting some of those really good antibodies from the breast milk, and she will be somewhat protected if she is exposed. So hopefully that will happen, but it does kind of give me a little nervous feeling about, you know, how contagious this Omicron virus is, and how it's spreading like wildfire. So I need to be really rather careful. And if you have any other suggestions for me, I would love them.
Well, I think doing things as much as you possibly can. If you have N95 masks, make sure you take those with you.
Okay.
Or KN95 masks. Wear them around the baby, especially if you're not feeling well. Monitor your symptoms. Make sure that, because that baby is very vulnerable. That baby can't get a vaccine, right? And we're hopefully, many of us are kind of keeping an eye on the national trend, and certainly Minnesota is really consistent with the national trend. You know, 1/3 of all the new cases this last week have been among people under the age of between the bandwidth of like 0 to 11. So we haven't done a very good job in the United States at all of getting the, kids between the ages of 5 and 11 vaccinated, even though they've been eligible for quite a while now to do that. And of course, 4 and below is not even eligible yet. And so what we've seen is a significant surge in the number of sick, very serious illnesses among young people, you know, very young children. A lot of the cases of hospitalization and ICU beds are children, and sadly, a lot of the deaths too. So take it seriously and protect those little wee ones.
Yeah, it really is. It's really important to get those kids vaccinated. I want, when we come back, I had this question, and I talked to Robert about it. There was this 14-year-old boy on the news. They did not tell us about his vaccination status, so I'm going to assume he was not vaccinated, and he died. And his parents were crying about it and very upset. It's a tragedy. Should the parents be liable for his death? We're going to be right back, and we're going to answer that question with Dr. Stately.
Big question.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
If you're hurting in your relationship or have been affected by sexual violence, you're not alone. Strong Hearts Native Helpline can help you through these difficult and uncertain times. Strong Hearts Helpline is a free 24/7 confidential domestic dating and sexual violence helpline for Native Americans. Help is available by calling 1-844-762-8483 or by clicking on the Chat Now icon on strongheartshelpline.org. This message is sponsored by the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
We are Alusa Nation.
Welcome back, everyone, to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host today, Wendy Pilot. Robert will be back tomorrow. This portion of the show, we did it earlier, but we're going to do it again because Dr. Stately's here. This portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
How?
Yeah, we need a male howl in that mix there. So before we went to break, my question was, Robert and I were watching the news the other night, and this very tragic, sad case of this 14-year-old boy who got COVID and died. The newscast said they didn't discuss their vaccination status. I'm assuming the boy was not vaccinated. That's because they didn't want to discuss their status. So the boy died. And I'm saying to myself and Robert, isn't this medical neglect? I mean, could parents be held responsible for not vaccinating their children if they suffer dire consequences? How do you feel about that? And what do you do about that, Dr.
Well, if you're asking me how I feel about it personally as a human being.
Okay, I'll ask you how you feel about it personally, and then maybe we could get.
As personally as a human being, but also as a parent, I find it unconscionable that you wouldn't do something to protect your children, right? It's just how I feel, right? It's like, this is how I feel. I feel like it's my job. In fact, I just told my son this like 35 minutes ago before I dropped him off for hockey. We got into a little argument. He wanted me to like loosen the straps on his helmet so it could the mask could be out further. And he's like, and I said, I'm not doing that. And I go, the mask and the helmet are built in a specific way to protect you. That's my job as your parent, is to protect you from things that can harm you or kill you or cause you great harm. So that's my job. He's like, yeah, but I want to look cool. I said, well, I'd rather you look uncool and be alive than look cool and be, dead or a vegetable, which I don't really want you to do if you get hurt right on the ice. So, and I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to be your parent. So the answer is no. But I think that's our job as parents, is to sort of like put the needs of our children, quite frankly, ahead of our own. Not always and not under all circumstances, but certainly under grave circumstances, right? And really critical and important circumstances. It's important to put the needs of our children ahead of our own when it comes specifically to the protection of their well-being and their lives. That's something I take seriously as an Indigenous man, as an Indigenous father raising Indigenous children. That's something that I value. That's a specific value of mine, and I'm unashamed or unabashed about saying that. And then it makes me wonder, though. I know there was a story. I think there was a kid like in Ohio or New York, somewhere like that, who's a teenager, 14 years old, I think, who was like suing he wanted to sue his parents to let them get a vaccine because he wanted a vaccine and he was able to legally assent to the vaccine, but they had to give consent, right? And they weren't willing to give consent. So it makes me wonder if that's the same case. But it's just I just, my feeling about it is that can they be held liable for it? Likely not from a legal standpoint, right? From a legal standpoint, children under the of 18 are sort of like the wards of their parents. Like,
Mhm.
but, you know, I just, do I think that
Yeah,
they're
I just saw this here. It says medical neglect is defined as a parent's failure to provide adequate medical or dental care for their child, especially when it's is needed to treat a
Mhm.
serious physical injury or illness. Medical neglect is generally considered to be a form of child neglect and is usually listed under the state's child abuse laws. So I guess that's if you're already sick and you're not getting your kid treated for a certain illness, not
Mhm.
get vaccinated.
Yeah.
So what would you say to a person? We have a comment here on our Facebook page. Don't wait, vaccinate. I'm sorry. I'm glad I read that over because I thought she said don't want the vaccine. So I'm glad I read that. And she's right. Don't wait, vaccinate. I love that.
Well, I mean, I think that yeah, it is certainly, I think uniquely the most difficult job on the planet is to be a parent, right?
Mhm. Absolutely.
It is
Why I never had
by
any
far the
children.
hardest job on the planet. You have the responsibility to, yeah, you have really, really important responsibility. You're raising this little human being into adulthood and helping them form good decisions and make good decisions, and you're protecting them from all kinds of things, diseases, bullies, social media, there's racism. You're like, it's a job that never stops, quite frankly. Like, even, when you're sleeping, you're probably dreaming about, the responsibilities that have to relate to your children. So I don't underestimate, and I have a really good sense of what it takes to raise children. I've been doing it for 14 years now, right? Um, and so I don't take the job lightly, and I understand how hard it is to make, and I also understand the fear, the absolute gut wrenching fear that a decision you make might harm your child or make them more vulnerable. But I also happen to be, a fairly logical person. I look at, data, and I'm a scientist. And so I also have a really strong intuition too. I've always been an intuitive human being, I think. I think that's a gift I got from Creator, and also from, my family, my mother and my sister. I was raised by Indigenous women. They're very intuitive people, and I learned this process of sort of like using, my intuitive brain, and then also my logical brain and my understanding of data, and to sort of form good decisions. And I think in this type of situation, making the best decision that that you can possibly make to keep your child safe from something that is clearly, evidently, right, dangerous and frightening. Something like this Omicron variant that is, cases have doubled in, like, the rates have gone like 500% in some places. They've gone up, right? We're at over 1 million cases a day of new positive cases, right? We have never been there in the almost 2.5 years we've been dealing with this, right? 2 years and some odd months and change. That should be really scary and wake people up, right? And so schools are shutting down, and there's all these other things. You can't get toilet paper again. That should tell somebody we're in a crisis, all right? And a few other things. It's like I really implore parents to sort of like use your intuitive sense, that thing that you were. I mean, I didn't give birth to my children, so I don't know what moms feel, but I imagine it has to be way stronger than what I feel for my children. And man, I'd take a bullet for my kid, right? That I'm not going to let anything happen to my child. I would give my life for my child, right? So I can't imagine it's any less than that. So I really want to encourage people to use that intuitive process to sort of make good decisions about protecting our children.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And we need to get our kids vaccinated. So if there's anybody out there on the fence about getting their kids vaccinated, please listen to the advice that Dr. Stately just provided and get it done. Children are when they're vaccinated, they can be safe. I would like to end with these thoughts. If you have been listening to the show, you are the resistance. The ground on which we stand is sacred ground. It is the blood of our ancestors. Free Leonard Peltier. Stop line 3 and please get vaccinated. Thank you, Dr. Stately. Thank you, Ogimaa. We'll be back tomorrow.
It's time to experience the amazing flavors of Eat